Rich Rodriguez, from KJ Harris, Big Joe, Kevin Koken, T.O.R.
And man, just keep doing what you're doing because you have a message.
I think one of the greatest college running backs ever, obviously in the history of West Virginia, but also if you look at the stats, what he did in college football.
All right, my good people. So I have a very, very special guest, and I always say that, but this is, it hits my heart a little bit differently. I've known this individual for better part of 35 some odd years. It's been a really, really interesting ride, but a blessed ride with this particular gentleman I'm about to bring on. And the funny thing is, when I tell you he wears multiple hats, and each and every one of them have been successful through my lifetime of knowing him. And this is the reason why I wanted to bring him on Relatively Sports with Eugene Napoleon, because he's an interesting individual with a lot of knowledge in a lot of areas. So this interview is definitely going to be special for a lot of different reasons. I have none other. I like to call him the connector. He's a business consultant with anybody and everybody under the sun, but he is the connector because he knows some of everybody. His Rolodex is extensive. I have none other than Doak Turner.
Thank you, Eugene. It's a pleasure. From the first seconds we met to a lot of fun we've had over the years. It's a pleasure and great to be on your show.
Absolutely. Thank you, my guy. I know you're busy, but I thank you for taking the time out to come on here. Listen, I want to start right from the very beginning about the discipline, because you've had so much of it in your life. Where did the discipline come from? Before we even get into all of the things that you do, just that part, because a lot of young people don't understand, in order to be successful, you have to first be disciplined. So where did your discipline come from?
Eugene, when I turned about 18 years old, just graduated St. Albans High School, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was lost. I just like, what now? And my stepdad, Jerry Goff, took me out in the driveway. And what he did, he held out his hand, said, Doak, here's what you got to do. You got to try this, try that, go here, go there. When you get here, what you learn back here is going to help you up here. He said, just go try. Go try things. You'll find your interest. And so I did that a couple of years, tried architecture. It wasn't for me, a few other things. I remember in February of 1982, a guy came to our house with a multi-level marketing company, of which I joined. And the greatest thing out of that was positive thinking books. I started reading about Zig Ziglar, Norman Vincent Peale, Dale Carnegie, Les Brown, all of those great people. And I started learning about how to network, how to deal with people, how to set goals in life. And about 8 months later, I'm listening to a Donna Summer song on the radio. I'm flipping the dial, and there's Finger on the Trigger. It's the craziest thing. I'm like, oh, wow, a new station. It's a disco station. At the end of that song, we're Super 102, and we're looking for salespeople for radio. I'm like, I would love that. I wrote the number down. I went down to my stepdad's office that I was out calling on. He said, hey, there's a station looking for a salesperson. I'm like, I get it, God. Okay. And I called, and I ended up getting that job in radio sales, which gave me a chance to learn about goals and being the best. And that's what I did from the first month to the last month. Top salesperson. I kept listening to Zig Ziglar and all of these people as I'm driving around making sales calls. And all of that helped change my life. And working in radio, and I said, I want to call on the Charleston Civic Center, the Huntington Civic Center. And that opened up doors to working with concert promoters and the wrestlers and people like that. What am I doing? Try this, try that. It's working up here. And from there, that it set the foundation for a crazy journey of life.
Here's what's interesting about that. And I love the fact that your stepdad pretty much talked to you. He kind of gave you a blueprint, but then you had the discipline. and not being afraid to go out and actually walk into your purpose and try it. That's the issue with a lot of young people and people in general. They may have the idea, the concept, and the blueprint, but they don't want to step into it. And that's why I'm glad I have you on this show, because we can speak to that. You navigated from radio to concert promoters to wrestling promoters. Tell me some of the most interesting people that you've met through your journey because of you not being afraid to walk into your purpose.
Well, I ended up meeting a lot of those people in the rock and all genres of music because I would build relationships with concert promoters and even the security people at the buildings where they got to know me. So when I got a backstage pass to talk with the promoter, I would meet the bands and so forth. And the wrestling, so I met, from the Moody Blues to a lot of my favorite artists at the time. I made a call when wrestling was happening in the mid 80s. The NWA, Dusty Rhodes, Magnum, Nikita Koloff, all of these people. I know you've had Nikita on your show.
Right.
But that happened because I called and I said, okay, what time are you coming to town? Well, a flight 3:15 arrives at 3:14 in Charleston. I said, I'll pick you up, Sandy Scott. Sandy was a former wrestler and was the promoter for Jim Crockett. So I took Sandy to dinner before the matches, built a relationship. The second time he's in town, he says, Doak, I need a ring announcer next month. I thought for a second, said, I can do that. Now, why could I do that? Because I thought back here, I used to announce baseball games at the baseball field behind my house. Yeah, I can announce baseball. I can announce wrestling. So I got a tux from a client, and I was a ring announcer for a couple of years and opened up doors to people I'm still friends with, to the concert promoters, and just wanting to be the best. And I would learn how to build networks in the 80s, such as that. Then I moved to Charlotte in 87, fulfilling another goal to move to a bigger market, which opened up a whole new genre of working with a lot of people.
See, again, it goes back to, first off, when I first met you, the first thing that I realized, the power of understanding and the development of relationships and people in general, you've always had that. So now taking that and moving it forward and again, navigating it around your career, that was an awesome thing. But would you say, going back a little bit to the way that you were reared and the way that you were raised, did that help you build the foundation that you were taught at home? Did that help you navigate through all the different lessons in your life and all the different other occupations that you occurred in your life? Did that help you?
Absolutely. I came from a positive family. Mom and I had a great stepdad when I turned 12. Yeah, he was a very successful architect in the community and always positive, and had two siblings. And I was blessed to have a mom that would have loved you. She passed 3 years ago, but everyone loved Betty Goff. And she said, go get him, son. I'm proud of you. Things like that. And yeah, that was important. But you think back that it seemed like yesterday from a positive stepdad. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just try. And that's what I've done from radio to when that ended in September of 91, when the radio industry changed. I read a newspaper, there's arena football coming. Hey, I would try that. I always wanted to be in sports marketing. And that led me to meeting you a few months later. And 30 years later, we're still friends.
Absolutely. That's the key. And listen, I get so upset when people don't understand this phrase. You have to give people their flowers while they're here.
Amen.
And one of the biggest reasons why I wanted you on this show, Doak, is because you've done a lot for a lot of people and you never take any praise for it. I've never known you to take any praise for anything that you've done. And you are a connector. You are a builder. Whenever somebody calls upon you for something and they ask a question, if you don't know the answer, you get the answer and you get right back to them. Or if you have the answer, you connect it right then and there. Like you said, speaking of Nikita Koloff, because you're such good friends with him, you put him on, I had him come on my show a few months ago because of the relationship. I really want to talk to that because it's very important. Could you stress and share how important it is to build solid relationships with people?
Absolutely. One of my favorite sayings is from someone I would say a mentor, not personal, but met him a few times, but Zig Ziglar. One of the most important phrases that I learned from Zig is, in order to get what you want out of life, help others get what they want. And that is what I've always tried to do. If I can introduce somebody, hey, you guys go do your thing. Introduce people. Sometimes there's a chemistry and greater things happen that you never expect. And a lot of times when you introduce people down the road, you have no idea what happened from that, the great things that happen. I mean, when I moved to just move along a little bit, when I moved to Nashville in 1982, 2002, to pursue songwriting and working in the music business, I would host an event at my house that over 100 people would come every month for 112 months to play songs and to network. And there's been some incredible things come out of that I had no idea. Some of the events, an annual event I would have, brought up to 600 people that met. Hey, there's been marriages, there's been hit songs, there's been people that get gigs in the music business because they met somebody. Years later, they tell me, hey, you remember that party you had? The guy told me it's a bass player, said, hey, I met somebody at one of your first ones. A couple of weeks later, I'm in England with Peter Gabriel playing in his studio. I had no idea. I just said, let's get together.
The connector. That's why. Apropos, the connector. I want to go into, because you are a songwriter yourself.
Yeah.
So, and I know you have the love for the music and different things of that nature, but outside of just wanting to do it, I always say success is all about the completion of the task. What prompted you to say, you know what, I'm going to take this idea from my head and I'm going to put it on paper?
Summer of '89, I took off. I just got out. I needed out of the radio sales business. I was burnt out. I said, take off for a year at least. And I took off about 4 or 5 months and I got into another business. I started strumming a guitar and these lyrics started coming to me. I didn't know how to play guitar. I just started strumming. Lyrics started coming. That became fun. I started writing that summer. Then I said, okay, I got to learn how to do this. Well, a friend of mine sent me this book. I'm trying to remember the name of the book, but it's about the music business. And and that guy, Steve Eccles, he and I worked together on going back here, trying this. On the couple of Neil Diamond shows when he bought advertising from me. And if you're a Michael Jackson Bad tour, we worked together to send listeners from our radios. We built that relationship. He sent me this book and I started getting into it. And I just kept writing. I didn't know what to do, but I just keep writing, stay on the journey. And from there, I was in Nashville. I worked for a NASCAR radio network for a couple of years. I would go to a country radio seminar in Nashville. One day I'm driving down Music Row and I see a sign about songwriters, Nashville songwriters. So I went into that building. And a couple months later, I started a local songwriting workshop, Nashville Songwriters Workshop in Charlotte. And I built that. What did that do? That opened up avenues for hit writers to come to our workshop and going to Nashville and networking. Which 6 years later, I went to Nashville to go after those dreams. The one thing leads to another if you just keep going. Don't have to know the end result, set goals, and just try to do right.
That's the beautiful thing about it. And the thing I love, because I've known you for so long, everything that you put your hand into, you turned it into something else. And that's why it's important for people to understand. You have to not only be driven, but you have to have the faith to say, you just said something that's very key. I don't have to know the end results, but I got to put myself in it to move forward, and let's see what happens. But if you're consistent with moving forward and you're not moving backwards, good things tend to happen when you move forward.
Yeah. I just remember saying in Nashville, must be present to win. You got to show up every day. You got to keep going. You're going to have good days, bad days, challenges, but you just got to keep going and believing in what you're doing and asking for help along the way.
That's the key. Now, here's what's interesting. You parlay that from not only songwriting, you are about to be a published author, my friend. You already know I want to dive into that. I want to dive all into that. I want to get all up in your business and that. I want you to share with everyone. Tell me about the process and again the journey of writing your book. This is your first, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's get into that. Give me the title. You sent me the cover is awesome, but I want my listeners to understand the whole process and when is it coming out, the whole nine. Let's talk about that.
Okay. Over the years, I kind of joke because I have all of these stories about working with some of the top athletes, getting to work with some of them, the athletes, the people in the music business, authors, entrepreneurs. I kept saying, one of these days I'm going to write a book. I'm just going to write a bunch of stuff down these stories. Well, along comes 2020. We all know that crazy year. I was blessed to be here to say, you know what? I'm going to do a brain dump. I got to get all these stories. And so I just started typing the year 2020 in Word document. I just kept writing all these stories. You hear a song. Oh man, I know that songwriter, or I know that artist, and here's a funny story about it. Or everywhere you turn around. And so I just put them all out on paper on just writing. And like at the end of the year, I had about 105,000 words. Like, okay, what to do now? I'm not for sure. It was the cheapest therapy I've ever had, just write all of these stories as a brain dump. And I said, it needs to marinate. So I let that marinate for 2 years. I got busy on some other things around here, doing some marketing for a company and so forth. Beginning of 2023, I said, I got to dive back into that. What can I do? How can I make that positive? And so from that, a crazy journey and finding my true identity. Because what I have learned the last 5 or 6 years is my true identity. Because what happened, I was in Nashville and I moved back to North Carolina at the end of 2017. I was going back and forth a couple of years. 2020, I ended the business I had. Music Starts Here. And what can I do positive from everything? I read a book. It's called You Are Beloved by Bobby Schuller. What I learned from that book is my true identity. Because what happens, I got caught up in it over the years. My identity is I'm a songwriter. I get to hang out with these people. I get all these passes. I'm a connector. I do all of this. And when I moved back from Nashville, that wasn't there. Who am I now? I'm lost. I felt like a failure. After all of these incredible things in my life and meeting some of the greatest, I felt like I failed in life. I didn't know what to do. I did not get those big hit songs. I had some people record my songs. I had a great journey. I've written with some of the greatest songwriters. I've done a lot, but I felt like a failure after that. And I read this book, as I mentioned, by Bobby Schuller, You Are Beloved, which taught me the identity. Your true identity is not your work. It's not your career. And identity is, I'm not what I do. Let's see. I'm not what I do. I'm not what I have. I'm not what others say about me. I am a beloved child of God. I will not hurry. I will not worry. And I read that a couple of times, that book. It just made me realize that stuff's what I did. It's not who I am. And I just said, thank you, God. For some reason, I'm still here. What can I do with this knowledge? And so I ended up writing the book. And hopefully, end of December, 1st of January, A Crazy Journey will be out. I have a website, acrazyjourneybook.com. It already has some of the photos from over the years. It has some of the endorsements and things like that. And I'm looking forward to the next chapter in life, I guess. I didn't mean to have a pun. But anyway, thanks to good people like you encouraging me over the journey. I've edited from 105,000 words to 72,000. And I will still have some other stories that didn't make the book that I'll figure out what to do. But the whole purpose is read those stories. How did this guy do this? But I have what I call takeaway, the story behind the story. How did I meet Eugene? How did I meet the Moody Blues? How did I get to meet and do an event with Paul McCartney, or 2 events with Paul McCartney? How did I meet Taylor Swift? How did I get to hang out with Garth Brooks? I didn't have anything to do with their success. But again, still, and how did I get to write with some of these great writers? It's the story behind the work where I connected someone. I took a chance. I moved to a different market. I went for a dream. My biggest dreams of writing that hit song didn't come true, but man, what a journey. And I'm thankful that I'm still here. There you go. Does that kind of sort of sum it up a little bit?
Man, that's incredible. And listen, you know, and again, the truest testament to anyone, obviously, is if somebody is coming behind you and it's flattering for someone to want to imitate what you do. The key is what you just summed up is everybody is trying to do. People are looking for inspiration no matter where they can find it, Doak. And that's the beautiful part about it. You know, your journey in that book is going to do well because it has all the antidotes in it. It has all. You have and I know you know this, when you meet people that are vastly successful like yourself, a lot of times you don't mind sharing how you got to where you are. See, I've met people who are vastly successful. They'll talk about themselves, but they won't share the antidotal information. That's the key, and that's the blessing. You don't mind sharing. And this book is another testament to that. It's a beautiful thing, man. It's your moral code. You don't mind, right? You wrote down all of this stuff and gave the backstories. This is how I did this. I don't know if you know how inspirational that is, because most successful people won't do that part. It's a beautiful thing, man. It's a testament.
Thank you. And speaking of the testament, in the book, after a lot of the first stories in the book, I have the testimony section, which talks about what I mentioned earlier of having a great life, you think, and everybody looks at you, man, you get to do this and that, and feeling like a failure. Well, where did I go from feeling like a failure to finding my true identity? That's what I want people to get is that's just what you do. It's not who you are. Yeah, you may have written those great hit songs. You don't have them now. That's okay. That's not who you are. It's what you do. You may be a successful architect, engineer, athlete. That's what you do. It's not who you are. You're a beloved child of God. Don't worry about what everybody else says about you, good or bad. And go from there and say, thank God I'm still here. Let's keep going. What can I do to help someone else in life? That's what we have to do to inspire the people. So the testimony is in the book. And after the testimony, I put several just short stories without the backstory. I'll be glad to share them with anyone. But I'm like, how did this guy get to work with some of these people? Who would have thought Doak Turner would introduce Flava Flav to Muggsy Bogues? You know, who thought Doak would be in a wrestling ring with some of the greatest? Who would think some of his, I don't want to say him, I'm not third person. Who would think Doak would get to be going to a basketball game with his basketball hero, David Thompson, that he forged a relationship with back in the 90s because of arena football, because of working with Carl Shear, who was the guy who invented the slam dunk competition and signed David to the Denver Nuggets. Well, I met Carl working with arena football. So I'm working with some of the greatest people. And that led to me getting to know a gentleman that came and stayed with me at Lake Norman, my condo where you stayed. That led me to Coach Larry Krieger, who ran Magic Johnson's basketball camp. Years later, a few years ago, I'm in LA at the Lakers game. I walk past and me and Magic's eyes like kind of connect. He's sitting with Jeannie Buss. And we just kind of like, hey, how you doing? I said, man, I'm a friend of Larry Krieger's. Magic gets up out of his seat and comes and says, how you doing? Now, where were my friends with the camera? No, they were. They don't. But you know what I'm saying? One thing leads to another, to another, to another. So that, again, all that's just what I do. What I want people to know is go for dreams, build relationships. You don't know what can happen, but you just got to keep going, even when challenges happen, when you feel like a failure. No, it means it's time to keep going. You reinvent yourself. I've reinvented myself over the years.
Right, right. Listen, I want to ask you this because it's very, very poignant. So, back when you and I first met, the Arena Football League, I don't think people really understand that definitely such a beneficial proving ground for a lot of different talented people in a lot of different areas. You as one, you were one of those individuals. Did you ever get to a point back then? I'm talking about actually the to parlay the radio success, getting into the arena part of it. Did you ever write down your goals and say, you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this? Because I know most people, I used to write my goals down where I can see them every single day. Did you write yours down, or were they stuck up here?
No, I wrote them down. I kept going. I would write whatever I get into. I would write down goals. Even the last
Mm-hmm.
one, I did some marketing for a broadcast business tour that went around with products in the broadcast business. I wrote goals down. This is how much I'm going to sell. So my last job, I would write once I got into figure out what's next.
Mm-hmm.
When I sold, I was in the NASCAR radio business in the mid '90s. I had work with a company, and it's called syndication, building something called NASCAR Country. I set a goal of 50 stations a year to add that show.
Right.
I said, okay, there's my goal. And I doubled it 2 years in a row. Then I got into sales and I did that. One thing leads to another. So again, I got into that business because a friend of mine that I used to work with in radio and became friends was doing that job when I was in Charlotte. We went to lunch and my friend Bernie Delgado says, Doak, you want to work in syndication? I'm moving on to something else. Sure, Bernie. What's syndication? But I knew I could trust her because we had a long time relationship built working together. Then I get into the NASCAR radio business. I'm out there hanging out with these crazy people. And so now I'm the NASCAR guy, the radio guy. No, that's what I did. But that was my identity for a couple of years. So, but yes, I wrote goals down and still do. And now I have goals for my book. So we got to keep doing it. Again, it's just finding new ways to reinvent yourself sometimes. You have a lot of friends, I'm sure, Eugene, that are athletes. And in the music business, is we both have and you remember the music is what connected you and I. When we
Yes.
met, you told me about your wife, and I said, well, I write songs. One thing led to another. I'm in Hoboken, New Jersey, and out in your town seeing Tracy. And we talked about the music business. I kind of, I think I said a couple of things that may have helped, and you helped me a lot. So there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I'm telling you, that is the key thing. And that's the glue, I think, to keep anybody together on their path. It's that solid relationship when you meet someone. And I personally have always said this, especially about you. The core of who you are, the foundation and the moral code, man, is such a beautiful thing. And a lot of people in our industries, as you well know, they're morally bankrupt. They don't have that. Yeah. And again, when you don't put God first and it's not really ordained by God, a lot of times people fall by the wayside because they're chasing the money, the prestige, the fame. They're chasing all the wrong things. You never got from me, ever since I've ever known you, you've always been grounded by faith, which I think that saved both of us in this crazy world that we call music, entertainment, or professional sports, whatever it is. It's the fact that you are grounded. And I definitely, we have a few more minutes, but if you don't mind, Doak, I want you to speak to that for our young listeners to understand how important it is to be who you are, stay in your own lane, and never have somebody change who you are as a person. Could you speak to that if you don't mind?
Sure. I've been blessed to be raised with Christian parents, bringing me up. And there's been times on my journey, I will admit, hey, I got this thing figured out. I hit my sales goals or whatever years ago. And the only thing consistent is change. in life. And if you don't have faith, you're in trouble. So I pray every day, and I'm thankful. It's just like when I was going through my tough time a few years ago, feeling like a failure. And I realized God has been there the whole time. And I just said, you know what? God kept me around for some reason. But you just got to pray about it, do the right thing, surround yourself with great Christian people. I have a great Christian woman, Kathy. It's the love of my life, that when I was going through tough times, she believed in me. She kept me going. And thank God for the people in your life that will keep you going. And usually, like I say, keep praying, get to church, whatever you need to do, but surround yourself with those and ask God for help. Pray about it and believe it. But pray about it. Have the faith and think back, okay, I've went through challenges before. God got me through, and we're going to get through again.
That's what's up. Doak, I appreciate you. I want you to go back one more time and let people know the name of your book and when the potential release date would be so they can go and get it.
Thank you. The book, and it's going to be on Book Baby is my printer, is printing the book. It's a great company. They're owned by the guy, Tony Van Veen, that owns Disc Makers, that a lot of us in the music business know about. And the book will be, you can go to acrazyjourneybook.com. That's my site. Now I have the information of how to order the book, most likely 1st of January. I'm just going through the final editing today, which is exciting. But A Crazy Journey and Finding My True Identity by Doak Turner. Go to that site. I will have the information, and I look forward to getting getting the copy to you, Eugene. And thank you, man. I love your books. Your book really, a couple of those I read, man. I'm so proud of you. But just learn the true identity is not what you do. It's not what you have. It's not what others say about you. You're a beloved child of God. I will not hurry. I will not worry. And just keep going. Be positive. And great things can happen. Think back what resources you have inside to keep going. One thing leads to another. And build those relationships and real friendships. That's what's helped me the most anyway. And take chances on people. Take chances. What's the worst that can happen? You got to ask yourself that when you go for big dreams. So thank you very much, Eugene. I really appreciate you, my brother. I love you and the family. And hope this can help somebody.
Listen, we love you as well. Everyone, this is Doak Turner, business consultant, connector, whatever you want to call him. He's a child of God, and he's a very, very successful individual, and he's my brother from another mother. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Talk to you, sir. You got it. Take care. You got it.